this church in 1986, having attended for 8 years, being very involved in RE, due to the fact that we had 2 young children.
But I officially became a member, and I remember the date. It was my son's first birthday. It was April 17th, 1971. But prior to that, I was mostly coming for social gatherings and things like that.
He was a member here, and then I started coming and joined in 82.
The church was much smaller then and less organized, maybe. So I just came in one day and signed the book.
It was in the early 80s, and I had been coming for several years, and I thought it was time to join.
My name is Sue Phillips, and we joined in January of 1977.
My name is Jan Phillips, and I agree with Sue.
We joined in 1992 when we had only one child. Gregory now is 28, and so we've subsequently had 2 more children. So they're all adults now. But joining was an important part of what we wanted for our family and our children.
I came here, I came to visit, and I found it very friendly and warm and welcoming. I remember, Alan and Ilsa Zinnis talking to me, and they were leaders in the church at the time, and other people talking to me right off, and I hit it off immediately with everybody here. I thought, this is my church. I'm a Unitarian. This is my church. This is it. There's no question.
Well, I was seeking a place where I felt accepted for who I was. And that was, even though I had been an Episcopalian, I was a very liberal Episcopalian. And you can still keep whatever you want of your religious views in the Unitarian Church. I like that aspect.
How we came to the UUCLV is an interesting story. My son, Michael, was taking cello lessons from Jan Galassi, and he was taking the lessons in the community room of the old church on Lekaweki. And so while I was waiting for his lesson to finish, I was browsing some of the material in the community room, and the church seemed like, very interesting place. So became interested in it. And then Michael again was a Weeblo. I think that was right. And the Weeblos had a religious requirement. We had no church. UUCLV looks like a nice place to at least test out. So we actually attended a service, and I believe we may have attended the very last service led by Howell Lind.
At that time, I was up on Lekaweki Avenue, and I can't say that we ever really had sermons. The one I remember the most is Dave Small, who was a professor of archaeology at Lehigh, and gave I wouldn't say a sermon, it was almost like a class on burial customs. And I'm like, this is different. But it was always interesting, and the other thing was that after they gave their presentations, they would have a question and answer period, so you could challenge them, you could disagree with them, but it was never done.
The events of us coming to the church had to do with an interesting letter we received inviting us to a lecture at a place with a strange sounding street name, Lekaweki Ave, and it was sponsored by an outfit called the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Lehigh Valley. And I had no idea who these folks were, although I was somewhat familiar with Unitarian religion, so I thought I would attend this lecture, and it turned out to be an actual Sunday service. And at the time, there was an interim minister in the pulpit, Larry McGinty.
Right.
And Lorraine was home taking care of our recently born child, so I went by myself, and told her about what I heard and what I saw, and she started attending with me shortly after.
So we were sort of scooped up into the structure of the church. We had to come up with a social activity for the membership every month. And so we had plays, we rented movies, which at that time were not easily available. And we had potlucks, we had art shows, we had drama, where people in the church put on the plays. And it was an all-around good time.
I think the number of members in the church were about the same back then, but it seemed more intimate because we were in a smaller space, and we had a lot more social activities and concerts and things that people participated in. We had a Halloween fest, we had some kind of Renaissance dinner where people dressed up in costume.
I believe I looked in the phone book or looked in the newspaper, and there it was. And came, and they had had a wild Halloween party the night before, and the president had big balloons and fishnet stockings. They celebrated uproariously, and I thought, this must be my church. And I've been pretty much coming ever since.
We stayed because of the community. It was a place where we could find kindred spirits, I guess you would say.
And I was glad that that we didn't have to believe a certain creed. That really attracted me. All were accepted, no matter what your belief.
Anytime that you have material presented to you that stimulates your mind, then it stimulates your journey, whether it's spiritual or intellectual or any other kind of journey.
I'm not sure whether I've had a spiritual journey to be nurtured, but it's, I think association here is, I'd like to say, made me a better person. I really believe that.
I think that the values of this denomination resonate very highly with my own personal values that I've developed over the years, and I just feel extremely comfortable here.
No, I think just the broadening experience of being a member with so many different people with so many different viewpoints that it forces you to rethink your own ideas. You know, there's the tendency of confirmation bias to only listen. You know, a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. There's a tendency to, you know, for that to kick in. So I think being involved with a number of people who look at the world differently, that has been a broadening experience for me.
So this was a good fit in that a congregation, interesting discussions we have. We're not as diverse as we could be, but I think sometimes that's because we come on, we like our discussions. And I think sometimes people go, whoa, you know, this is a little intense. But it's been a good fit for us, and I'm glad I joined.
I think the biggest thing is to participate in at some level. To come to a work party, to help with the auction, to help with a dinner, a potluck. Those are all ways when you're actually working with people that you get to know the people and really understand where they're coming from. Social action, the shelter, I mean, the list goes on and on, but I find those to be the places where I've started to connect more to people and really understand who they are.
Well, when I joined, I was very, very active on committees. In fact, right before they went to 2 services, I took over the hospitality, not knowing we were going to 2 services. I was on the finance committee, I was on the personnel committee, not all at the same time. But I really jumped in with both feet and loved it.
I mean, I've done various committee things. Back when we used to have Sunday services, I was Sunday services chair, which encompassed a lot more than what is now split into multiple committees. I mean,
I did a lot of work with Richard Redd. We both served on some art-related programs. We staged an art exhibit in here. We had one in the other church.
Another building project that Elsa worked on when she was on the buildings and grounds was to fix up those stones out front.
Oh, the stones, well, we looked terrible. We really, the walls were falling in the sidewalk, and it was awful. So we raised the money and had work parties and got people involved in beautifying the place.
We both sing in the choir, we enjoy that. And you get to every 2 or 3 weeks participate in the service and hopefully add something and make it more enjoyable for others. That's certainly a worthwhile thing to do.
There's something else I want that hasn't come up that I think it's important to say that has been important to us throughout the years, and that is I've always appreciated the high level of intellectual stimulation and just the caliber of mind of the people here, and then also the caliber of musical talent that's in this church. So over the years, we've had a chance to sit and hear some really beautiful music played by the people who were part of this church every Sunday. And I think that had an influence on our kids who are musicians, and it's certainly an important part of what I love about church on Sunday, is singing and hearing good music, and we always got that here.
Joelle and I played duets in church. Maybe she'd be playing the piano and I'd play clarinet, or vice versa. And then after she graduated, I actually got more serious about clarinet. And Alan Zinnes, I played with Alan, and Bob Stein, who's still sort of a member of the church, who's a very good clarinetist. And then there was another guy. We had a clarinet quartet, and we played in church a lot. And we had poetry and music Sundays at church, and I would always play the clarinet during Poetry and Music Sunday. And it was very important for about 5 years. Playing the clarinet was very important to me, and that was totally developed through the church.
So for me, I think it's having been able to get to know the church. I mean, I've done many of the jobs here, including I was president very early on, and just to be trusted with all of that. And even to this day, people come to me and ask me things kind of out of the blue. I mean, they might ask me a hospitality thing or a membership thing, and I like that. I like being seen as the long haul resource person.
I think we have a good reputation. I think we have a good reputation in terms of service, and we are small, but I think our influence through people's volunteerism and pursuit of humanitarian issues, I think we have a nice reputation.
We began our journey with the church in 1984. So how many years is that? It's been a long time. 30. And through that time, we've consistently participated in the life of the church. And it's been meaningful and rewarding for us in many ways, in terms of the friendships, in terms of the sense of community, in terms of the fellowship. So it's been a good journey, and we've valued that journey and benefited from it.
And the friendships, I mean, that's not only, that's just giving in return a lot to me.
I am so fond of many friends here, and I enjoy seeing them week after week, especially after Sunday service in the community room. I really like seeing the same friends every week.
Early on, because I was under a great deal of stress, I was getting bronchitis severely, at least once a year. And what absolutely amazed me about this church is that there was one particular member, but there were more, who drove out to my house twice a day to make sure we had food for myself and the children. And on top of that, when one of my boys came down with what they thought was appendicitis, she drove him to the hospital and sat with him because I was still working and couldn't do it. The amount of support I received at that time was beyond belief.
I really do love this church. If I need support, I know that there are people that will give it to me. We just have such a wonderful congregation.
I consciously say, oh, I think I need the church. I mean, I go anyway, but then I think, oh, I need to hear the joys and sorrows, what people are going through. And I need to hear the programs for the breakfast forum. They're very good for the most part. And I go away with different thoughts.
We have a beautiful sanctuary, and I love our thing from Lehigh, our chalice up in the front. And, I just love the way it looks, it feels, it's warm.
People have come, people have gone, and there's some of us who have stayed for the long haul. I tend to think of myself as a long haul person. Maybe, of course, you could say I'm a long haul person, but maybe somebody might say I stay too long. I should have perhaps left 50 years or 40 years ago, but I tend to get into things, and if they're important to me, I stay with them.
Yeah, I would say we were here through the good and bad times. We stuck it out. As Reverend Don has said in his sermons, there are the long haul people, and we are that.
I think this congregation, this church, is a positive thing for the Lehigh Valley, for our community. Both the people here and the things we do and the things we stand for. I think this Lehigh Valley wouldn't be as good a place to live in if we weren't here.